So do you all already know each other, everybody, or should we do a quick
Probably wouldn't
introduction?
hurt to do an introduction.
Okay. Since I'm talking, I guess I will introduce myself. I'm Caroline Alexander with Alexander Research and Consulting, and I'm helping Workforce Solutions last year we refined the methodology for identifying the target occupations. And then this year I'm just helping facilitate the committee conversations like this one, and then the subcommittee and the committee at large. So with that, I'll pass it over to Kevin. You want to go next?
Yeah. Kevin King, Director of Operations at Workforce Solutions, Southeast Texas.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Peyton Moran, the new Workforce Analyst for Workforce Solutions.
I'm unmuted. I'm Claire Jackson with Motiva, Public Relations.
Good morning. This is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, is that Stacy? Stacy, you go ahead.
Hey, Emily. This is Stacy Nichols with International Paper. I am the Global Manufacturing Training Manager. Nice to be here.
I'll follow wonderful Stacy. I'm Stacy's biggest fan. I'm Emily Mellon, Community Relations Representative at Chevron Phillips, and I can't talk very well right now, so I'm not going to be talking a lot today, just listening.
Well, we hope you get to feeling better, Emily.
Thank you.
Brian, you're unmuted.
Oh, okay. So I'm Brian Nagel. I'm the maintenance manager over in the Beaumont complex, ExxonMobil complex over by Lamar.
Morning, I'm Sade Chick with the Port of Beaumont.
And Jessica.
Hey, good morning. Apologies for being late. I'm Jessica Hill, Business and Economic Development for Entergy Texas.
All right, thanks everybody. So I'll give the overview of what this committee is again, just so y'all will have the background. So at the last Target Occupation Committee meeting, we had a discussion about emerging workforce trends or emerging technologies that were going to impact the workforce needs of the region. And two of the trends that were identified were LNG and sustainable technologies. So we created subcommittees so that we can have a discussion about how those technologies are going to change the workforce demand of the region. So we're here today to discuss a little bit more about what falls under the umbrella of the sustainable technologies, and we're going to discuss, what are the occupations and skills that are going to be needed to adopt or implement those technologies. And then if we get to it today, what kind of training will be needed for those occupations, and the kind of the purpose or the thing that we're looking for is what needs to be added to the target occupation list or the ETPL as a result of this. Kevin, do you have anything else to add, or Brian?
Yeah, I would just say I pulled from an ExxonMobil perspective. I pulled from what our corporate strategies are for sustainable technology. So I got 10 slides. There's probably 3 or 4 slides with real stuff and some pictures on them, but I can share those with the team just to kind of get us going on when we talk sustainable technologies, sustainable solutions, and what we believe is coming to the Gulf Coast area, and certainly within the Golden Triangle, around what some of that technology is going to actually mean, and what are some of the, and then we can debate within that what we think some of the additional trade crafts will be to support that technology. So I can share that if you want, or we can talk about some other activities.
Go ahead, Brian. I think you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, let me try and do this. Okay, can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So when ExxonMobil talks sustainable technologies, there's a big thing. We try and talk in terms of carbon carbon neutralization. So how, what does that really mean? So all the CO2 and the CO that's produced in all the different oil and gas and petrochemical manufacturing facilities and activities, what does it mean to be net zero, by some time frame in the future? And we've kind of targeted 2030 to have some significant reduction, and then 2050 to be net zero. So a big solution for us, and I think a big where the industry's driving to is what we call carbon capture technology. So if you think about carbon capture, where does all of our carbon come out? Within our refineries and petrochemical facilities. It comes out of our furnaces as we burn natural gas or fuel gas to add heat to the chemical process. So a big solution. So what you see in this first slide, all the blue bubbles are all of the big CO2 concentrated emission streams or emission areas, big bubbles, and you can kind of see where Beaumont is relative to Louisiana and the Houston area and down by Corpus. But what tends to happen is in those areas, whether it's carbon capture technology, where you're taking some sort of chemical process, you're taking the carbon stream and you're using a process to remove the carbon dioxide, and then more than likely pumping it into the ground or selling it into the commercial market for other reasons. So, the reason why the Gulf Coast is such a viable place for carbon capture is because there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of caverns and wells that we can put the carbon back in the ground. So I think that's a big part. So, we think about all the LNG facilities, we think about all the pumping facilities, the big compressing facilities, and then just additional chemical processing plants to separate the carbon dioxide from the exhaust streams. That's all a big part of carbon capture. So carbon capture will really add beyond fuel manufacturing and chemical manufacturing. There's going to be a big industry component in the area to capture carbon and sequester that carbon. Now that plays into a couple other key parts to the Exxon strategy. One of the big things that we really are working on now is how do we make, which is another component that's coming to the Golden Triangle area. How do you take recycled plastic and add it back into the chemical process and basically make it into a circular product? So you produce the plastic, you use the plastic is wasted, and how do you take that plastic and make it back into more plastic without degrading it or put it into a landfill? So if you think about recycling today, largely when you put a plastic bottle or a plastic milk jug in the recycling bin, it gets crunched up and it gets remolded into some plastic that's degraded down to some level lower strength plastic. Advanced recycling can actually take that waste, and if you think about petrochemical manufacturing, you can take that waste and turn it back into, put it back into a refinery, take the light hydrocarbon, make a resin out of it, turn it into some plastic activity, brand it, sell it to a consumer. They put it into a waste bin, and Exxon can actually take that plastic now and move it into a model where we actually have units that take the recycled plastic and put it back into the chemical processing unit and make it into brand new plastic in. So if you combine that with carbon capture, you can now produce plastic under net zero terms. So you have zero carbon emissions coming from that plastic. So, a big part of the industry. So if you think about what that means to move plastic into a chemical plant, a big part of that industry is, people that separate trash and people that pick up, kind of the whole trash collection and the cleaning of the recycled material and that sort of thing. So today, a lot of that is done overseas and it's shipped back to us. But I believe as this will pick up more in the Gulf Coast area, we're going to see more of a need to, kind of deal with that waste and prep that waste before it goes into the chemical plant. And then the third big sustainable technology that's coming to the area is what we call hydrogen production. So today a big part of our fuel gas, our furnaces are burned with natural gas, or we take fuel gas that comes off the refining process, we stick it in our furnaces. There's some view that you could take your hydrogen in, that's produced off different units and put that in your furnaces, which when you burn hydrogen, you basically get water molecules coming out. If you take that hydrogen and you produce it under a process where you can capture the carbon from the hydrogen, now you can fully embed a sustainable operation. So again, another big part of the industry that's kind of separate from chemical processing and refining, and will be hydrogen production. So I believe the market, the broader area, there's going to be a big market for hydrogen production over the next 20 to 30 years. And again, all that kind of just revolves around, processing technology, different mechanical trades, process operators, and power operators. But big market for hydrogen, big market for recycling, and a big market for carbon capture is all part of the when we talk about how the petrochemical industry is really driving sustainable solutions. There's lots of investment across the whole industry on how do you really capture your carbon, and how do you produce fuel gas or hydrogen to burn in your furnaces to give you net zero emissions. That was a lot. And you guys have any questions on that?
Brian, do you guys talk about any different jobs that are needed in these three processes? Like specialties, what degrees might be coming down the pipeline that aren't there today?
I think there's probably a large component of additional, just the big rotating machines, but no, I think beyond what's not already here and available to us, we'll need more of them.
That's kind of the feedback I got when I went looking for jobs for this type of thing. We need more engineers, and they will learn as the trends and the units change and what those look like, but really just more chemical engineers, that kind of thing.
Yep. And then more, and then so really, how do you really make the this part of the country attractive to those engineers and people to come into the Gulf Coast, right? I think a big part of what we see too is, this industry is losing its luster as far as attracting a lot of talent to come into this area. The Teslas of the world and the Googles and the Microsofts, they tend to be much more glamorous and fun to work in. So we tend to have a harder time kind of capturing some of that talent.
And maybe it used to be the financial stipend was the difference, and that's kind of caught up.
Yep, with the pay structures of all the tech companies and the different manufacturers. Yep.
Yeah.
So I will say that I don't believe chemical engineering is on our target occupation list. And the reason that it hasn't been in the past is because, from my understanding, it requires a 4-year degree, and we usually only fund 2 years. But one thing we did do recently is we added registered nursing to our target occupation list and decided that we would go ahead and fund 2 years of that 4-year degree. So that might be something we can do similar to chemical engineering as well. So that could be something we could recommend.
And I mean, I think, if you provided more incentives for local, you think about Lamar University and what their capabilities are, just incentivizing people to do that certainly helps feed the area with some of that expertise, right?
Well, and Kevin, I don't know if it's exactly chemical engineering. It might just be engineering in general.
Engineering in general.
Okay.
Electrical, mechanical, chemical.
Yeah, industrial. There's a lot.
And that would actually probably be even better, because I'm sure if you're not as specific, you would probably have better data points, I would think, on the demand. Is there any kind of background information or local wisdom, Brian, or anyone else in the committee could gather for us that we could bring along when we take this to the target occupations committee, and then after that, the board that could kind of back up the demand for engineers in our area? Besides just the data that I can run reports in Jobs EQ, but y'all might have some actual local wisdom that you can put on top of that.
Yeah, I think from an engineering perspective, and I would separate that from the craftsman side of it. You think about process operators and you think about, pipe fitters, boiler makers, electricians. I don't know if we have a hard time attracting the craftsmen, because this generally comes from a very blue collar area. But the engineering, from the engineering side of it, it's been traditionally challenging for us to attract engineers into this part of the country. I think a lot of that just deals with, there's probably some stigmas that come with the Golden Triangle area, that engineers that are outside of the area don't want to come in. So I think, the strategy that we've been kind of moving down is how do you begin to recruit out of local schools, right? How do you recruit out of the Houston area? How do you recruit out of the Louisiana area and the Beaumont area? And really directing recruiting out of, from this area where people are already familiar with the area, families are here and they've grown up here. So I think that's a reality that we live in, that we have a challenging time attracting talent from outside, the Southeast Texas or Southern Texas and Western Louisiana area.
Maybe also like on the job exposure or experience would help the local engineering students to come see what a day in the life is like. I don't know, we all can't probably work on one internship program because all of our companies do it differently, but maybe that would inspire the students to stick with it, because I have heard that from Lamar University lately is, they need to see what they're working towards and what the job is like in the field.
Could you do it like the externship program Workforce Solutions does, but for interns?
So Motiva actually did that with the professors in August. We brought in 6 Lamar University engineering professors, and it was phenomenal and very eye-opening for me. But there was one that's a chemical engineering professor that taught wastewater theory for 15 years, never seen it in person in action. It blew my mind. And it was a great experience. And so maybe that's a way we could do it with professors or interns, like you're talking about, Sade. That would help, hit that next level and encourage people to stay with that as a degree.
Brian, to your point, International Paper also struggles to attract engineering talent to the area. And so we targeted Lamar University as well, because we know that we need to try to target people that are already here. But as you mentioned, we're going to tap them out, right? So expanding out, I completely support that 100%, is getting out there. How can we support getting outside of our area to get more engineers to come? And then you mentioned craftsmen. I know I popped on the call early, Claire, you were talking about this, about how it's not attractive for young folks to go into some of those professions anymore. And so, what can we do? It's not a matter of that we don't have, well, I don't know that we have the numbers either, the number of people that even if every student went into it, that we would have enough, but attracting more craftsmen would be backing up to that high school, post-secondary age group, attracting them. And just exactly what you said, Claire, about engineering. They don't know, how can they know that they want to do it if they don't even know what we do, what those craftsmen do every day? So it's basically for both of those, just to kind of back up and say, and we are starting some programs with high school students to allow them to come out to the paper mill and see, what do we do every day, and what does a craftsman do in that field, and what type of work do you perform with your hands, and what's the career pathway. I know Sade's worked on some of this as well in her with her wonderful pathway pictures and different things that she's put out there, but more of that can probably help too. But yeah, just to back up, is Kevin supporting, even if we could support 2-year programs, or 2 years of the program that they're in, could probably help all of those things.
Kevin, what binds us to 2 years? Is that a hard rule, or
that's a funding
It's Department of Labor.
Yeah.
Department of
As
Labor?
far as
Yeah.
I know, that's not flexible.
Okay. I do think, I mean, I think that there's, I think in this area, the stigma is less on craftsmen, but there's definitely a, how do you get into the high schools and communicate and educate and just show the benefits of, you know, what's the economic benefit of being a craftsman, right? And then also undoing some of the stigmas of working in a big plant. Right now, there's a lot of fear. I know if you talk to a lot of people that don't come from this industry, you know, I would never put my kid in that plant. I mean, bad things happen in there, right? But if you don't come, if you're not in it and work around it, you don't always realize all the different things that we do to drive safety and drive, you know, make sure people come in and work safe, right? And have safe environments to work in. If you're not familiar with it, you know, there's a lot of fear looking into it.
A couple things we've been looking into is there's a path after high school for welders. There's a path after high school for pipe fitters, you know, scaffold building. There's not one for machinist. There's not a local program that has an associate's degree or certificate that you can get in machinist beyond some of our career and technology programs in the area. And
Yep.
so that also, so they go work in a shop at $12 an hour and don't understand that they're building a skill that could really turn into a better job as they're learning the craft beyond high school. A lot of us don't hire 18-year-olds, so they have
Yep.
to go to a contractor.
Yep.
So that's been a touch point where we could look at a lot of some of these other craft specialties and the career path after high school, to keep them knowledgeable. I can't stay. I do have to jump to another meeting, but I did go back to a few people within our facility. Cybersecurity, what is a huge need for all of us and beyond, attracting IT in that space. So I know that would be one that maybe we should consider. And then data scientists. You know, our facility's been here 120 years. We're looking at how to run it more efficiently, analyzing the data. And I think that hits into these LNG and sustainable technologies as well. How do we understand the data that's there? And industrial hygiene is still not as high as maybe we'd like it to be, an interest or people seeking that degree. I mean, that's just something I got some feedback within Motiva to maybe consider.
Thank you, Claire. That's kind of what we need from you guys. So I appreciate you doing that.
And I have a question that takes us a step backwards a little bit, but from the other folks on the call, are there other types of sustainable technologies that your company or your plant are looking at implementing that would need something different, some new occupations or some new skill?
I actually had a question for Brian when he was talking about the hydrogen. Brian, are you referring to like gray hydrogen or green hydrogen? Because at Entergy, we're obviously
Yep. Here, let me share my screen again.
Congested with our ability to serve especially in the Beaumont, Port Arthur area.
Yep.
Many of the projects that we're working with have a green component to them, and
yep.
Probably 50% of those are green hydrogen or green ammonia projects. Yep. So just if you could kind of dig into that a little bit.
That's a great question.
How that plays out over time.
Yep, that's a great question. So this slide, this kind of shows the different types of hydrogen. And to your point, Jessica, I think the green hydrogen, so that comes from electrolysis. So you're taking renewables, which is the sustainable part of that hydrogen component, wind energy, solar energy, and you're cracking, water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. Pink hydrogen, I don't know where they get the colors from, but pink hydrogen comes from nuclear power, which sustainability is, there's zero carbon emissions from nuclear power. Again, electrolysis makes it into hydrogen and oxygen. What we're doing in the petrochemical space is, to your point, blue hydrogen. So taking natural gas, using a reforming process in the refinery to create hydrogen, and then capturing that carbon. So what we're trying to drive is blue hydrogen I think, there's some discussions that do we get into the green hydrogen business because of some access to renewables that we can grab onto, but largely when you talk about a refining activity, it's all blue hydrogen because of the reforming and carbon capture.
Okay, thank you.
So Jessica, is Entergy is working more in the green and gray hydrogen space?
Mostly blue and green.
Blue and green.
We are not, but obviously there are several layers to this for us in the sense that we have to provide the power to these manufacturers, and we have to meet our customer demands, whatever they may be. And if it's a green hydrogen or green ammonia or green fill in the blank chemical behind it, then we have to source renewable power somewhere. So it either has to come from a Entergy owned asset, a BOT, which is like a built by others, and then we buy it, or it's something that Entergy owns itself, that we've constructed ourselves to provide those renewable assets, or we can offer renewable energy credits. So we are trying to figure out in our own space how to build out the power generation that we need to supply the manufacturers with clean, sustainable energy in order to satisfy their requirements or their customers' requirements. And obviously the IRA is a big component in all of this that's driving a lot of what is and isn't eligible, or what qualifies as a renewable energy source. Some say nuclear is, some say nuclear isn't. A lot of it has to be time matched, which means solar isn't eligible because the sun doesn't shine 24 hours a day. So it's a very large web that we are trying to navigate our way through. And then on top of that, we have our Orange County Advanced Power Station that is under construction in Orange County, that when we filed with the Public Utility Commission, we had requested that we be able to fire that generation using hydrogen. They denied that request. However, they did leave the door open for us to come back and make that request again and build the facility with components or infrastructure in place that it would be easily retrofitted to use hydrogen as a fuel source. So that's kind of why I was digging into the hydrogen piece a bit, because I do see it as Brian mentioned, as a very large industry moving forward. If I think it proves itself as a commercially viable to some of our leadership, not Entergy leadership, but state and federal leadership.
Hey y'all, this is Emily. I have to hop off as well as Claire, but I wanted to add that you may be familiar with the Bayou Bend project, the carbon capture that's coming from Chevron New Energies. I can connect with them and see if there are some specialized occupations that we might all not be aware of, and share with the group.
And even if it's not specialized occupations, but just specialized training that, someone who's already working would need, that could be useful too.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
For doing that, Emily. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So how many more questions we got to cover there, Caroline? I know everybody's got a busy schedule, so we would definitely want to take their time into account.
Yep. So, well, the other questions were about training related to the kind of emerging occupations, but from what it sounds so far, it's the same occupations, you just need more of them. So the training's in place. You just need help getting people into those training programs.
I do think, though, to the extent, Carolyn, we can influence local training programs for machinists and rotating equipment activity. I think That was a great point. We're missing that. I think we largely rely on union apprenticeships and contractors to train on the job for a lot of that skill. So how do we continue to incentivize that in the trade schools? And
I guess the issue with that is we do have machinists on our target occupation list, but there's a lack of training programs is what I'm understanding by the discussion today.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Crane
guess
operators too. There's not the training programs are limited.
What did you say, Sade? Which
Crane operators, the
oh,
training
okay, crane operators.
to get trained, it's very limited.
right.
And then Brian, you said too, along with the machinists, what was the other occupation you said?
I mean, I think you have well, machinists and millwrights, right? So
Millwrights. Okay.
yeah, there's a machinist is somebody that works essentially does precision machinery in a shop. A millwright will do, depends on how you define them, but they're basically the field operators that go out and work on the equipment in the field. If it's not in the shop, the millwrights will work on it in place.
And that one's on our list as well. It's just, like we said, lack of training programs at the schools. I'm surprised that ABC doesn't have a machinist training program, but I guess they don't.
To your point, Brian, International Paper struggles with rotating equipment. Of course, we need millwrights. I mean, that's usually the most of what we need in the Craftsmen section, but I won't take a lot of time talking about this, but we have started the FAME program to start building to recruit straight out of high schools, to go together as a group of people, to go as a group of companies going out recruiting together into those high schools, building a pipeline of young adults who want to come into the program, and then it gives them opportunities to go out and get experience within the plant. So that even if they want to go do something else, it's really learning a lot about a lot of things so that they can then take that information and go on and do something else with it, or go straight in as a millwright. So I'm happy to talk to anyone if they want more information.
Is the FAME program the same one that Toyota's doing in San Antonio? That one?
It's yes. The uniqueness about the FAME program is that each region can design their own curriculum to fit what that region needs. So Lamar State College Orange and the partners that are currently enrolled part of that program have given input as part of a board to what this region needs. So it's a little bit different than what San Antonio needs.
Is that a government? Is that a government funded program, or is that industry funded? It's
through National Association of Manufacturers. It falls under that umbrella, particularly under the Manufacturing Institute. So it's a leg of that. So it's not government led, but it started with Toyota, and then it grew so much that they passed it on to Manufacturing Institute to run it.
And I know that the selection process on that is pretty specific. I think part of the focus of the program is that you want students to actually be, self-sustainable, debt-free. So I don't know if that's something we would want to add to our ETPL, Stacy, but I mean, it's possible we could. I mean, if you think that it would be a good fit, I don't know if the parameters would fit what you guys are trying to do with it, though.
Let's talk about it off. We can talk about it now if you want, or we can take it off. I don't want to take away from today's purpose, but I'm happy to talk about it if we want to do that. But it was worth mentioning since we're hearing the need, and that's one program that can address and grow and scale to what the region needs if we utilize that program. From a recruiting point of view, right? Well, and training, but yeah, because it's one group going out instead of Exxon trying to do their own thing and Motiva trying to do their own thing and Sade trying to do her own thing, and we're all working independently of one another. It's united front where I can send Sade to go recruit for FAME, and then we all disseminate among the groups that are recruited from FAME to then fit students to where they best fit based on their interest, based on their whatever. But we all work to get them funneled into that manufacturing skilled trade program that essentially, as Kevin mentioned, they graduate debt-free. So yeah, that's awesome.
And that's mostly the millwrights. Do you guys do anything with the machinist program, or is that something you're considering in the future?
The great thing about it is that if we have a larger group of, if the larger group of industry partners decide that that's something that is needed, then they come together and we modify that curriculum to fit the need for the region. I know that there are some pieces of machining in it, but I don't know that it's to the level that anyone would say that they're a machinist, but they are exposed to a lot of that, the skill that it takes to be able to do machining. It's just not a machining program.
Right.
And then who actually provides the training through the FAME program?
Our industry partner is Lamar State College Orange, but I know they are working in some discussions currently with Lamar Institute of Technology and Lamar State College Port Arthur to figure out how they could cross that boundary, because as you know, that the boundaries they possess don't adhere to the industry boundaries. Like, we don't care where they come from, we just need workers. So we're trying to figure out a way to overcome how can we partner with all of those folks to scale the program to the need for the region.
Okay, I just put a link in the chat to, we actually did a podcast episode on FAME. So if you guys are interested in finding out more information, it does a deep dive into the program.
So through FAME, does that include outreach? Because we've noticed that there is a significant difference in how students are impacted if the person speaking to them looks like them. And like, if you bring in a crusty old captain compared to a young pilot who had a hard story and was where they've been, they're much more likely to resonate with the pilot than the old captain who's like, this is a great career, you should do it. And they're like, but does FAME include that type of outreach, like coordinated outreach?
So we're in our very first cohort. They just started this August with the 4 partners that are hosting students right now. But our goal is to get those students out to their high schools to talk about the program and how it's working, right? So once we can get to that point, those students can then go out and go, hey, I was just in high school a year or 2 ago, and this is what this program is doing for me. And so I don't need Sade to go out there and do that at that point, or Stacy or Brian or anybody. Those students go out and sell it, and it grows the program because people like them are saying what this program did for them, and the income that it's having, the difference that it's making in their life and their family and all the things. So that is where we hope to get it. We just haven't had them long enough to be able to do it. The other part that we hope to get to is that we want to make this eventually a dual enrollment program, so that students in high school can begin on some of these courses with Lamar State College Orange, but then they still have to go through the 5-semester program. So that would free them up to do some of the work that we just talked about. Going out to, part of their responsibility would be then being a mentor to some of those high school students to recruit them into the program. So it kind of, they still have to be in the 5-semester program. They could either work more than the limited part-time hours, or then spend some of their time out there recruiting.
Well, I will be listening to the podcast to learn more about it. That's great.
Also, guys, we're doing the industry forums again this year. So I don't know if you guys are interested. They're in October. I can share that information with you after the meeting. I can send it to your email, but we're doing manufacturing and we're doing transportation. So if you guys are interested.
The FAME chapter will also have a table at the Connect to Your Future Summit. We will also have a table at the Career Expo at the Ford Park in February, so you can find more information there too. But I'm always happy to talk to anybody that wants to know. And to your point, Sade and Brian, about other crafts, the program can be scaled. We're not ready for that yet, but it could be scaled for process operating, for to have kind of emulate that setup to other programs.
I learned something new. Sent it on to our Workforce Solutions folks. Thank you.
Well, good. The other question I had was just about how many folks we would need, but I think since it's these existing occupations, we might sort of relay the information to some of the folks who are on the committee that represent the higher education institutions. and have a more detailed conversation about machining and crane operators and millwrights.
So there's another area too. It might not apply to exactly what we're talking about, but when you're looking at truck drivers, specifically concrete pump truck drivers, there's no school that trains specifically on concrete pump trucks, and every industrial facility that's growing or expanding needs concrete. And so the training costs associated with moving these people through their programs are very, very high, and they're losing a lot of product in the process. So like Folsom and Martin Marietta specifically, I know more about, but they are constantly hiring because the turnover is so high because there's no training in place or no like comprehensive training, you know, and their benefits are great. Their starting pay is great. They have retention bonuses. They're good jobs that usually result in like $70,000-$80,000 a year with overtime. But they just can't fill these positions because there's no proper training.
Have you been in touch with Dr. Stafford on that, Sade? Because I know he just started that CDL Center. And okay.
I've been in touch with him, with Mark Jones, and they've all said basically good idea. But I'm trying to connect them with Folsom to see if Folsom will let them use a truck, because that's what they need. They need a truck to train on. Because it's just a Class B. You don't need your Class A.
It's an endorsement, basically.
Yeah. But nobody's training on it right now.
Okay. Good information.
Well, and does anybody have any other, it could be other occupations or other sustainable technologies that we need to have on our radar that you think are going to be influential over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think GIS. I don't know if that's on anyone's radar, but I know we use it more and more in our industry. And the municipalities, they're using it a lot more.
And you would need someone who can like process the data, make the maps kind of thing, or you need someone like further into the weeds than that?
No,
like GIS analyst.
Yeah, we have someone on staff, so it's not a problem for us. But we've noticed that. So, for example, City of Beaumont, they have a platform they use, and they've mapped a lot of their utilities. Well, unfortunately, it's based on maps that are very, very old. So we frequently hit water lines we didn't know were there because the maps aren't accurate. So I think a lot of these municipalities are going to have to start going through this process of ensuring their maps are accurate, and that's pretty labor intensive. So eventually they're going to have to look at how they want to do that, and I think it's going to require GIS analysts.
What's the training programs look like on that, Sade? Are there any at all?
So the Department of Labor has an apprenticeship program, and I know that includes GIS analysts because we've been considering putting a couple of our people through it. But you really, if you have the program, if you have Esri or something, you can go through their training, and it's pretty simple as long as you're good at sitting in your seat for hours at a time and listening, not getting distracted, and you can do it.
So it's not anything that's going to be offered by our local universities or colleges.
Well, I was about to say,
online thing.
It can be like a certificate program or part of like a minor or something that would be out of the geography department. Or I know like at University of Texas in the community and regional planning program, they have GIS courses.
Gotcha.
But I don't know that it's big enough to be like its own major. It seems like it's can be a specialization or concentration. Anything else that anybody wanted to bring up? All right. Well, Kevin, do you have anything?
Just great information everybody shared today. And I know Brian won't be available at the Target Occupations Committee meeting on the 14th. So I think, Caroline, if you could try to plan on reporting, what we discussed here at that meeting, and then I'll get a list together of the occupations that you guys suggested, and we'll have to actually get some data on those and see what they look like as far as projections and things like that. But I think engineers, basically, from my understanding of what we discussed, was the main one that we wanted to try to add. But I'll definitely look at the other ones you guys listed as well.
Well, it sounded like some of the ones were already on the list, but we need some training programs on the ETPL.
Right.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you guys for your time today, and have a little extra time back in your day, and hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys. Appreciate your help.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Bye-bye.